and play on 2nd and 10. That's his youth right there.
Tagovailoa trying to make up for it. Fires to the end zone. Touchdown! Alabama wins!
So today I'll be continuing with my college football game-by-game prediction and roster preview videos with the Coach Prime Colorado Clown Show. So Colorado returns only 21% of their production, which ranks only 127th in the country. And they had the only 67th ranked recruiting class in 2026, getting commitments from 0 5-star and only 2 4-star players. So starting on the offensive side of the roster, Colorado was terrible here last year, averaging only 20.5 points per game, and they're not going to be much better than that, I don't think, this year. So the quarterback this year will be 5-star redshirt freshman Julian Lewis. So he was the number 6 overall recruit and number 3 quarterback recruit in the 2025 recruiting class. But he only played in 4 games last year to keep his red shirt and only started 2 games. And he was not very good last year. Only completed 52 of 94 throws, which was only 55.3%. For 589 yards, averaging only 6.3 yards per throw, and threw 4 touchdown passes and no interceptions. But he's not a threat to run at all. He had negative 35 yards rushing on 24 carries. And while Deion Sanders wasn't a threat to keep it with his legs, he could run around while in the pocket to try to find an open wide receiver, which is something that Julian Lewis is not as good at doing as he was. But Lewis is going to have a loaded wide receiver room to throw to. He's got Joseph Williams coming back, who had in 10 games last season 37 catches for 489 and 4 touchdowns, averaging 13.2 a catch. And he's got DeAndre Moore coming over from Texas, a 4-star recruit and portal player. He was a 2-year starter for Texas at wide receiver, and last year played in 11 games and had 38 catches for 532 and 4 touchdowns, averaging 14 a catch.
24 plays run. They put it in the air 18 times. Empty backfield for Arch Manning. Pressure again. And as he throws again, lobbed up and hauled in. Touchdown.
And he's got 2 good group of 5 wide receivers coming over to help him out. One of them comes from San Jose State, Danny Scudero, who played in 12 games last year and had 88 catches for 1,297 yards and 10 touchdowns, averaging 14.7 a catch. And the other one comes from Miami, Ohio, Cam Perry, who played in 14 games last year and had 43 catches for 976 and 6 touchdowns, averaging a really impressive 22.7 a catch. Now, running back, it's not going to matter what Colorado has because they can never run the football because their offensive line is always so bad. Last year, they only averaged 125.6 rushing yards per game, which ranked 104th in the country only, and only averaged 3.5 yards per run. And they're not going to be any better than that this year, I don't think, because they're going to have 5 new starters on their offensive line. 4 of them are likely going to be transfers. Jordan Seaton, their only good offensive lineman from last season, transferred out. And this offensive line was a unit that gave up 38 sacks last season. So on the defensive side, they were terrible here too last year, giving up 27.7 points per game on average. And they're not going to be much better than that this year, I don't think. They rank near last in the country at stopping the run, giving up 222.5 yards rushing per game on average, ranked 133rd. And their defensive line has been completely redone with the portal, but it's going to be terrible again as always. But they should get a little bit better at stopping the run because the linebacker play should be a little bit better because they've got Liana Lafaya coming over from Texas, who was a four-star recruit and portal player. And a 2-year starter for Texas at linebacker and had in 12 games last season 69 tackles and a sack and a fumble recovery and 3 pass breakups. And they've got Gideon Lampron coming over from Bowling Green, who had last season 119 tackles and 2.5 sacks and 2 forced fumbles and a pass breakup and 15 total quarterback pressures in 12 games. And the secondary should be pretty good. It was pretty good last year. They ranked 41st at stopping the pass, giving up 203.2 passing yards per game on average. Because one thing about Deion Sanders is he does know how to work with the defensive backs. The problem is he doesn't know anything about the front seven or about the offense. But they do have a good group of safeties from the transfer portal. They've got Boo Carter coming over from Tennessee, a 4-star recruit and portal player who had in 22 games these past 2 years, starting 5 of those games, 63 tackles, 2 sacks, 7 total pressures, 3 forced fumbles, an interception, and 3 pass breakups. And Randon Fanente from Vanderbilt, the 2-year starter for them, who in 13 games last year had a total of 52 tackles and 6 pass breakups, 5 quarterback pressures, and a forced fumble. And they bring in Nathan Mitchell from New Mexico State, who had in 12 games last season a team high 93 tackles and 4 forced fumbles and 3 interceptions, 1 for a touchdown, and 6 pass breakups. And they've got Justin Eaglin coming over from James Madison to play cornerback, who's good. He had in 14 games last year 35 tackles, 5 interceptions, 1 for a touchdown, and 8 pass breakups. So now for the game-by-game predictions, starting with on the road at Georgia Tech on a Thursday. Georgia Tech is really the opposite of Colorado. They're a very well-coached, strong, physical team, and I think they're going to chew up the clock in this game and win this game easier than they did last year. Last year, Georgia Tech only won it 27-20 because they made a bunch of mistakes early in the game, but I don't think that happens this time. And then Weber State, I do think this will be Colorado's one blowout win of the season, the one game where they get to play second stringers in the second half. So now on the road at Northwestern, this will be a loss by a couple of scores, I think, for Colorado because while Northwestern loses 4 out of 5 starters on their offensive line, it won't matter against Colorado's defensive line. Colorado won't stand a chance of being able to slow down Chip Kelly's offense, I don't think. And Colorado won't stand a chance of being able to score much on David Braun's defense either, that finished top 25 last season and has a lot coming back, and also made a few big portal additions too. So now on the road at Baylor, this will be a very close game most likely, but I think even on the road, Colorado is able to get this win. I trust DJ Dud Lagway even less at quarterback than I do Julian Lewis, and Baylor's offensive line I think is going to be a mess this year too, with four new starters up front, and Dave Aranda's pretty much completely redone the front seven of his defense through the transfer portal, and I'm just not trusting it. So now Texas Tech, this will be a big blowout loss for Colorado, a huge coaching mismatch in favor of the Red Raiders. And on the roster, when it comes to passing offense and passing defense, Colorado might be able to somewhat match up with Texas Tech. The problem is where they don't match up at all with Texas Tech is the lines of scrimmage on both sides. So now Utah. So like Colorado, Utah is going to have a completely new offensive line. And for the first time in forever, I don't know for sure if Utah's coaching staff is good. I just assume it is good. But I certainly like what I've seen out of Utah quarterback Devin Dampier a lot more than what I've seen out of Colorado quarterback Julian Lewis. And I like a lot more what I've seen out of Utah running back Wayshawn Parker more than what I've seen out of any Colorado running backs. And while new Utah head coach Morgan Scaley is giving up defensive play calling, I do trust his defense a lot more than Colorado's defense. So I do think that Utah does get this win fairly comfortably. So now on the road at Oklahoma State, I think this is going to be way too much offense for Colorado to stand a chance of keeping up with. Now, I'm not high on Oklahoma State's offensive line because, like Colorado, they're going to have all five new starters there. But I am very high on the quarterback that coach Eric Morris brought over with him from North Texas, Drew Mestamaker, and the running back he brought over from North Texas, Caleb Hawkins, and the wide receiver room that he brought over, including a couple from North Texas. And against this Colorado defensive line, Oklahoma State's offensive line should hold up fine. So I think this is going to be a pretty bad loss again for Colorado. So now Kansas State. So like Colorado, I'm not very high on Kansas State's defense this year, but I do think Kansas State's offense is able to get them this win by a couple of scores. And for Kansas State to have hired a head coach with no past head coaching experience, they couldn't have gotten a better fit for their program than Colin Klein. And I already think that he's a better head coach probably than Deion Sanders is. And I certainly feel a lot better about Avery Johnson at quarterback playing for him than I do Julian Lewis at quarterback playing for Deion Sanders. And Joe Jackson comes back at running back for Kansas State, who owned Colorado for 142 rushing yards and three rushing touchdowns in a win over Colorado last season. Now, I'm not very high on Kansas State's offensive line, but that shouldn't be an issue against Colorado's defensive line. So on the road at Arizona State. Like I've said before, I'm not very high on the transfer quarterback that Kenny Dillingham brought over to Arizona State. But you have to remember that he beat Colorado really bad last year with almost no quarterback at all because Sam Levitt was hurt in that game. And Arizona State is going to have a really good defense again, especially against the run. And as bad as Colorado's run game is going to be, they'll be lucky if they don't run for negative yards in this game. I think Arizona State beats Colorado pretty easily again. So now Houston. So another game where there's a huge coaching mismatch in favor of Colorado's opponent, and another game where Colorado's opponent is going to have way too much defense for Colorado to stand a chance of winning it. Houston's defense will shut down Colorado's offense, and Houston will get this win by at least 2 touchdowns, I would say. So now on the road at Cincinnati. So I think this is going to be a one-score game because Colorado does have the better wide receivers than Cincinnati does, and they've got the better secondary and the better linebackers than Cincinnati does. But Cincinnati does have a really good offensive line, and I think they can push around that Colorado defensive line and run for 200 something yards in this game. And plus they've also got home field advantage, so those reasons I think are why Cincinnati gets this win. So now Central Florida. So I think this game is going to be within a field goal. The rosters and coaching staffs I think are that close to each other. But Colorado is the home team in this one, so that's why I am going to pick them to win this game. So I've got Colorado finishing the season at 3-9 overall and 2-7 in the conference, and then maybe after 3 losing seasons in 4 years, Coach Prime will finally decide to give it up because I do not think that they will fire him. But that'll be it with this video. Please subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll be back soon.